Despite living in the sewers of New York, they are the city's protectors against crime, guarding the citizens from the attacks of Krang and Shredder, the swordsman leader of the team and the genius scientist and mechanic. They are Leonardo and Donatello. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are some of the world's most well-known characters thanks to the many toys and shows that have been airing since late 80s. And in this exclusive out-of-box, we will review the new Leo and Donnie figures that Animéxico and Tamashinations will bring to the Western market. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles story began more or less in 1984 when Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird decided to make a parody of all the popular comics from that time. Yet, it was thanks to the animated series that aired on 1987 that the Ninja Turtles reached the whole globe and its immense success was cemented. The story varied a lot from the comic to the series, even the character designs, but that show was seared in the childhood of many. There have been many new series and movies, but none have managed to capture that essence and impact that the first one had. That's why Tamashination decided to recreate that classic look that we all know in these new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures, with all the characteristics and details that the S.H.Figuarts have. Now, before we start the review, we have to clarify that we have prototypes without packaging, yet it is highly unlikely that the final versions will vary much. So, without anything more to say, let's continue with the review. Definitely the first thing we notice when we see these figures is the fact that they seem directly pulled out from the 80s cartoon. The body sculpt is very similar to the design from the show, just with added details on some parts that emulate the human anatomy. We're talking about the muscles of the legs and the arms. Something very interesting from these figures is the fact that they have die cast on the belt buckle and the shins. Also, all of the paint job is done with opaque tones, except for the buckle, and that works very well with the overall look of the Ninja Turtles. Besides the super characteristic green hue of real turtles, Leo and Donnie have other elements that expose their reptilian origins. Obviously, their heads remain very turtly with a very oval-shaped skull, a very big round nose, and their popping eyes covered with their blue and purple bands. Another thing that makes or breaks a turtle is its shell. The frontal part is colored with a mustard yellow tone, and it is the only part made with flexible plastic to allow the chest joint to move and enable greater thoracic movement. The back part of the shell is colored with different hues of brown, and it includes the widely recognized hexagonal pattern shown in other turtles. Another thing present is a belt that goes around the whole body, from the frontal shell to the rear shell. Moving to the rest of the body, it's worth mentioning that Tamashinations found a super effective way to hide the elbow and knee joint by integrating the colored bands above the articulations. The bands are made with rigid plastic that makes these accessories much more functional since they move along the double joints. Also, they are constructed in a way that hides the union points in the elbow and knee. You can practically say that this is the next evolution of the mini patch that we saw on Krillin and Trunks' knee. To finish, this new Ninja Turtles figurine reproduces perfectly the look that we saw on the mythic show that started on the 80s. So, if you're a fan of the franchise or of the show, these figures definitely are for you. Speaking of accessories, Leo comes with 2 heads, 2 katanas, 8 hands, 1 extra belt for the weapons, and a manhole cover. On the other hand, Donatello comes with 2 heads, 8 hands, a bow staff, 1 extra belt for the weapon, and a piece of slice. As with the Krillin and Freezer figures, Leo and Donnie come with different heads instead of faces to be able to represent their different emotions. Leonardo, being the most serious brother, has heads that show little to no expression. Donatello, on the other hand, does have a very happy face, even though the best accessories are their special weapons, Leo's katanas and Donnie's staff. These objects are super well known, and fortunately they come with their respective hands to hold them. And since we're talking about their weapons, another cool accessory is the extra belt that allows you to place their weapons on their back. Also, Leo comes with a manhole cover as an extra accessory, and Donnie has a pizza slice. Because yes, if you live in New York, you have to be a fan of pizza. To conclude, the rest of the hands that come with the figures are the most versatile ones: the fists, the semi-open hands, and the full open hands. Throughout the body and head, Leo and Donnie have 39 movement points or joints. And speaking of joints, they truly represent the ones a ninja must have since they have a lot of mobility. The shoulders have a lot of space to move since nothing is obstructing them, and these sculptures do come with a scapular joint. In the arms we have the bicep articulation as well as the double joint in the elbow and the ball joint in the wrist. If you move the frontal shell, you can see that the chest joint exists, but this one doesn't move a lot because of the rear shell. The good thing is that the waist is very flexible. Moving to the legs, in the pelvis we can notice various ball joints and cylindrical ones that give a lot of flexibility to the upper legs, besides adding a lot of ease to the poses. In the knees, we have a double joint and the shins work similarly to the Shogokin figures with a click system. That's because the shins are die cast. The ankle movement is very free and can be moved to almost every side, and for more versatility we have the instep joint. And moving on to the poses, Leo and Donnie are super poseable with all of the included articulations, and the fact that they have some metal parts makes them very stable and firm. Also, each of them comes with different accessories that capture the feeling of New York's streets and sewers. But as with every figure from Tamashinations, the best scenes and poses are the ones that come from your imagination and make use of other figures from other lines. For example, in a fight between the shinobis of Konoha versus the urban ninjas of New York, who do you think has the best techniques? Leonardo and Donatello stand 6 inches high. Comparing them with other Tamashination figures, we can see that the Ninja Turtles are a little bit smaller than Piccolo but taller than 18. Putting them aside the shinobis from Naruto, we can see that the ones from the Leaf Village are taller. Also, Sailor Moon and Sailor Mars are more or less the same size as Donnie and Leo. And well, the Saint Cloth midline is a lot taller than them. Remember that this review is made for the Mexican market, so if you would like to know when these figures will be available and also their price, check your local distributor. Subscribe to the channel to find out more about new figures, and we'll be seeing you soon with more recommendations to fill your collection with excellent figures in the next Out of the Box.